Okay, so the long-awaited FIFA World Cup review video is here. Now, before I go into the review video, I want to say apologies for the lack of content the last couple of days. As you can tell from my voice, I have been battling this chest infection that's been going around a lot of Europe right now, and I think in North America as well. There's a lot of people coming down with a flu-like virus. It is pretty horrible. I've not felt this bad since I had COVID 3 years ago, so it is rough. I've been going to work with it. But as soon as I get in, I've been pretty much curled up in bed, so it's not been pleasant. And secondly, my laptop, which is five years old, in like what 3 weeks, has had some technical issues as well over the last few days. I've had to completely reinstall Windows. I've lost all my data, which is frustrating. I think I had all my funny outtakes are gone as well. I had a lot of outtakes that I was going to compile a video together. That's all gone. So I spent 19 hours over last weekend with my neighbour and friend fixing it. So that was frustrating as well. Now, let's delve into the FIFA 2022 World Cup review video. Now, I'm not going to go into every single one of the 32 nations that took part in this year's World Cup. We would be here for far too long, and I want to keep this video as brief and as fun as possible. The longer the videos, the less fun they become, and they become more frustrating, especially if there's a mistake and I have to do an outtake and start again, because I try and do all my videos in one take if at all possible. In fact, I think all my videos are done in one take. So let's say I got 28 minutes through a 30-minute video and I screw up. That is the most frustrating thing that could possibly happen, so we're trying to avoid that. So let's have a look at some of the nations that underachieved and then some of those nations that overachieved, and of course the latter stages of the knockouts where I think nations did well and did badly. So the nations that I'm really disappointed with, are Uruguay. I'm disappointed with them not getting out of the group stage, and their behaviour at the end of their third group stage game is just not good enough. Yes, there is frustration and there's passion there. It was their best performance in the tournament, I will admit that. They left it till rather late to try and get out of the group, but they weren't good enough to make it out of the group stage. And Suarez and Cavani, it is their last World Cup, and to go out like that, and their behaviour at the end, it wasn't a good look for football. It wasn't a good selling point. And Cavani, when Cavani gets that kind of level of frustration, you can tell something's off. So whether how big the fines are in the FIFA investigation, we'll see. I haven't really heard anything updated on that, but there were some very angry scenes at full time in their third and final group game. But I was disappointed with Uruguay. The European nations I was really disappointed with. Denmark and Belgium stand out for me as big disappointments. Denmark, with how they came together last year at the Euros around Christian Eriksen, how they performed as a team, as a unit, really disappointed with them, but they have no goal scoring threat. So while they're very good defensively and don't concede a lot of goals, and they didn't, going forward they were really, really anemic. And that is a problem that Denmark have never really had before. They've always had at least one or two good attacking, potent threats. And when their best goal-scoring threat is the left-back, that tells you all you need to know, Mæhle, about the Danish system and their lack of goal-scoring threat, which is a massive problem that is caused them to fall at an early stage, which was unexpected. Belgium, on the other hand, going into the tournament, we had a sweepstake at my work, and on the sweepstake sheet we were given, as of the 16th of October, they were 4-1 favourites. They were favourites by, I think, a couple of bookmakers going into the tournament. Now, obviously, teams like Argentina and France and Brazil also favoured highly, and as did England. And those nations all made the knockout stages at various levels into the knockout stages. Belgium, I was concerned with Belgium when they lost the game to Morocco and the manner they lost to Morocco. But also, I was concerned with Kevin De Bruyne's statement on the eve of the tournament saying we're too old to win anything. Like they had already resigned themselves to not being good enough. And they were shocking. Now, Roberto Martinez has stated before the tournament, this is my last international tournament with this group of players. And Belgium, much like England in the 90s and the 2000s and 2010s, that kind of golden generation tag, I think has weighed down this side, but I was seriously disappointed with Belgium. They should be in the peak prime of their careers, and they fluffed it. When you've got players like De Bruyne and Hazard in your team, you should be better than that. Lukaku was hopeless, absolutely hopeless, and I don't think he was fully fit. But they have other strike options, and none of them performed at all. There's clearly a divided dressing room there. We can go and delve into the Belgian situation at some point. The biggest nation, I think, at the group stage in my opinion, that failed badly was Germany. Yeah, I don't know what to really say about this German setup over the last 4.5 years, but something has gone very, very wrong. And I did make a video in regards to the Bayern Munich dominance of the Bundesliga finally having a negative impact on the national side, and I believe there is a correlation there. Germany haven't been in this situation where they, not got out of a group, apart from these last two World Cups since 2000. At a major tournament, and that was at the Euros in Belgium and Holland, where England beat them 1-0 in Charleroi, courtesy of an Alan Shearer goal. I remember those days, and that's when England were also flattering to deceive and failing, considering that those two nations had contested a really entertaining semi-final in the same competition 4 years prior. Now, what's gone on with Germany is the last two World Cups they failed to get out of the group, and last year's Euros they laboured into the knockout stages and were swept aside by a pretty exuberant, youthful England side. And then there has to be question marks over like the succession of Jurgi Löw into Hans Flick. And is this, I'd give the job to the Bayern Munich guy because he's dominated German football, give it to him. There is a Bayern Munich dominance with coaching appointments as well. Jurgen Klinsmann, although he went to Bayern Munich after leaving the Germany job, he was still involved with Bayern Munich at some point, and Jurgi Löw was his assistant. And Jurgi Löw was critical in getting Hansi Flick appointed, as was Jurgen Klinsmann saying, I want my assistant to be the new main guy, and that was a good choice. This has not worked out so well, and Germany have the danger of turning into what England and Belgium have been at periods with these very talented players. There's no doubt that Germany produces talented football players. But Germany runs the risk of doing what England have done for so long and what Belgium have done for so long, where they've got talented players and great youth development and a fantastic league. And they can't put it together for an international team. And they are now getting swept aside by teams that they used to beat quite convincingly. And they dominate midfield play, and they're very good defensively. But going forward, our final third, much like Belgium, much like Denmark, they haven't got anything. Füllkrug, okay, when he came on, he scored goals. That is a problem when, yes, he's a pretty solid goal scorer for Werder Bremen recently. He spent most of his career in the lower tiers in German football. He's finally getting his shot at the Bundesliga, like a Jamie Vardy kind of story. But he was the only striker they took to the World Cup. So I have, again, head-scratching about selection there. Then we get on to the knockout stages and where big nations fell. Spain, another one. They might have battered Costa Rica in the group stage, but for me, that was a one-off. The other games they showed they had no scoring threat, really. They were playing in front of teams like Morocco, and it made it easy to defend. Germany as well, a poor Germany side, drew 1-1. And that was a must-win game for Germany, and they didn't lose it. But so Spain, look, the amount of managers who've lost their jobs coming out of this tournament as well it's been a managerial graveyard. I'm going to admit that. Spain, Luis Enrique's gone. He's not there anymore. And again, some of the selections of players going to the tournament, and some of the selections of players who went to the tournament, like Morata, Spain looked better with Morata on the field. They did. It gave them a threat. Now, he's not. Is he a streaky centre forward where he'll score in clutches and then he'll score for him? Yes, but he provides something different. But even with Morata on the field, they still it was plan A1. So you got plan A, and it was a slight derivative. There was no plan B. There was no tactical adaptation to the situation because they're obsessed with tiki-taka, which is basically, in modern day terms, I'd rather watch paint and varnish dry. It is a very easy system when you're playing with a false 9 or a false 10 with no out-and-out centre-forward strike or even strike partnership up front, to face it defensively and go play in front of us. Then you're not got anything going in behind, and you're not making crosses out wide. Play in front of us then, and that's what Spain did, and they played into the hands of the opposition teams, and they fell quite early on in the knockout stage, embarrassingly. That was a big blow. Japan, They had a golden opportunity against Croatia. They played very well in the group stage. Very, very well. Fantastically, actually. Very impressed by Japan and where they're going. But game management let them down, which is a shame. South Korea. Yeah, their game against Brazil. Yeah, they were a defensive sieve, and they've been so good in the tournament up to that point, and then they, well, yeah, had a meltdown defensively, and their coach also lost his job. So, Tite, Brazil's coach, he not there anymore. They got to the quarterfinal. I wasn't sold on Brazil. They didn't fill me with any kind of confidence that they were going to go far in the tournament. Personally, I'm disappointed. Portugal, Portugal have got some great young players coming through. Ronaldo, he's been done at international level now for a couple of tournaments. Let's be honest. And there's a lot of Ronaldo fans who are going to give me a lot of hate for that, but he's been past his best now for about 3 or 4 years. He needs to accept that. Ronaldo fans need to accept that. Portugal accepted it. They play better without him on the field. Let that sink in. Portugal played better without Ronaldo part of the starting 11. It's true. I'm sad to say it's true. Ronaldo, and it didn't help with the fallout from what happened at Man United. That kind of same attitude of entitlement, saying an ego, he carried over to the Portugal national side, and I think those reports of training ground bust-ups and disagreements between the coaching setup and Real, I think there was some truth to that, because they were playing better without him on the field. And again, out, gone. And obviously the rumours linking Ronaldo to a move to Saudi Arabia and a 2-year playing contract and a 5-year or 7-year deal to be part of their bid for the 2030 World Cup. I'm not comfortable with that. In the sense of, yeah, play out. If he wants to keep playing, fine. But yeah, will we have another World Cup on the Arabian Peninsula? I don't think so. But that's another thing altogether. Some of the nations that did impress me, now I'll get to England in a minute. Croatia, again, for such a small population size, how they continue to make the latter stages of World Cups is ridiculous. Half the World Cups they've appeared in, they've either made the final or the semi-final. They've done the same again. Morocco, fantastic. Just fantastic. And that is a team effort to get to the semi-final there. It's a shame Croatia and Morocco didn't meet in the final. That would have been a fantastic first-time winner, I personally think, which would probably be better for the global game as a whole. When we get to Holland, workmanlike, they played better when they had the big guy Venkhorst up front and De Jong, the two big guys up front against Argentina, for example. They again wasn't sold on the Dutch, haven't been sold on the Dutch for some time, and that's going back to the 2010 World Cup. The last decade, 12 years, no, they haven't been the Dutch sides of old with graceful skill and aggressive tackling, sure, and you know, a top flight centre forward who can bang, you know, he's a 30 goal scorer domestic. They haven't got that. They've got some great technical players, sure, and they can score all over the field. But when it goes to League Two style instead of total football style football, to get goals and get back into a game, it says that the system is a bit wrong, and that's the development system and the style of play they're playing doesn't suit necessarily their best lineup. England, I'm not angry with England going out the way they did. I'm not disappointed, actually. But I do think, is Southgate the right guy to take that next step with the team? Now, he's committed for 2 more years until the end of the next Euros. There's some good young shoots there. There really is. But I do think that, again, pressure game, tactical nous. Southgate, he may have done really great things with the culture of the England setup and the youth development and the pathways, fantastic. But in those big games, the semi-final at the last World Cup, the final at the Euros, and the quarter-final against France in this World Cup, not good enough. And in between, yeah, did really well in qualifying the Nations League, absolute shambles. So, but he's got the best percentage win record of any England manager who's coached over 10 games, and he's the second most successful manager at World Cups after Sir Alf Ramsey. So let that sink in. That sums up the situation. And football's all about, it's totally 100% about results these days. And England are where they are. Is he the right guy to win silverware, win trophies with England? I don't know. But do we have anyone better who's available right now, taking him forward? I'm a bit torn on England game management as well. They've still got to improve on that. And then we get to as I said, Croatia and Morocco. I've covered them; they were fantastic. Argentina and France. Here we go. Argentina, fantastic going forward, apart from the first game against Saudi Arabia. Defensively, suspect, and their game management isn't good enough, yet they still win the World Cup. And it wasn't all the Messi show, which is a very important thing to stress. Yes, he's obviously won the World Cup at last, which is fantastic. But it wasn't all the Messi show, and there were some young players like Alvarez, McAllister, De Paul, some younger players who really shone. Molina, Acuna, Emi Martinez, okay, he's a bit of a colourful character, and he has been heavily criticised for his post-match celebrations after the final. And did they cross the line? Were they inappropriate? But he's a colourful character. He's also a brilliant goalkeeper, and Aston Villa can be very, very proud that he's on their books. Alexis McAllister, Brighton are going to fight tooth and nail to make sure he's part of that team going forward because he's integral to that team. But no, Messi finally gets, obviously, his World Cup. So does Di Maria. And I've been heavily critical of Di Maria, but his impact on that World Cup final when it was all going a little bit Pete Tong and being in the side, he gave them something a bit different. Now, France, on the other hand, again, Didier Deschamps. He's been to 3 finals with this team now. He's won 1, lost 2. And don't get me wrong, Mbappe's fantastic attacking threat, can't defend. And it's a two-way game these days. Forward-thinking players need to track back to help with the defensive side of the game. And for a large period in the France-Argentina final, he was absent. Griezmann was good and bad in the tournament. He's a very good player, but he's streaky. Defensively, though, not good enough. Yet they've managed to make a World Cup final. How? And I keep questioning this. The last 3 tournaments, this one included, how they made 3 consecutive finals. I am head-scratching this out of 4. 4 tournaments Deschamps has coached in, he's made 3 finals. How has he done that? How has this team won the World Cup? Because, when you've got players like Mbappe, obviously, you've got goals in it. Giroud actually had a very, very good tournament. Very good tournament. Which I felt was fantastic. But defensively, and I think going forward, this is going to be an issue for us. Now, yes, I know they were missing a lot of key players that have been integral to the qualification for this tournament. Were integral at the last World Cup and the 2016 Euros. Last Euros, they looked off. Last year, they looked off. And a lot of the players involved in last year's Euros weren't part of this side for a variety of reasons, including injury and or suspension. Will Deschamps be there the next Euros? There you go. Now, I'm going to leave on this final point. The next World Cup, the co-hosts, the 3 co-hosts. Canada, they've scored their first World Cup goal. I think they slightly underachieved. I think actually they could have been a dark horse, and they left me a little bit underwhelmed. Mexico, shockingly poor, and I expected more from them, and they really underachieved. So question marks have to be asked about the Mexican development system. And we're never going to see Ochoa at a World Cup again. The guy's an elite level goalkeeper who's cruelly underrated. The US, mixed views on the US. I think there's some green shoots there. Same with Canada. I think there's some very good, developmental shoots there. I think they are going to perform better at the next World Cup. But again, they are lacking that out-and-out goal-scoring threat up front. Same with Canada. That is a slight problem that both the Canadians and the Americans have, is that goal-scoring threat up front. Mexico, which is woeful. It's simple. But the US and Canada have the good basis. They now need to find a couple of more threatening goal scorers in the centre-forward striker positions, maybe from the wing, to take their good 2/3 play into that final third. So I have high hopes for Canada and the US going forward with their systems. Mexico, back to the drawing board, questions need to be asked. So there we go. There is my long-awaited review of the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar. Obviously, it's 3.5 years' time, we'll be in the US, Canada, and Mexico, and I'm really looking forward to that. I think that is a positive. And as I said, I think some of the teams that were at this World Cup will not be there in 2026. And of course, it's an expanded World Cup. So this is the last World Cup of 32 teams. So I will be looking at the 32 team era of World Cup and look at goals per game average at some point. I will do some research into goals per game average since 1992. So since I've been watching the game, I'm going to be looking at goals per game average across the European leagues at least. I know the Premier League has stayed pretty consistent. The other leagues, however, we shall see how goals per game average has changed. There are websites out there that do detail goals per game average. So that'll be interesting. But for me, thank you very much for making it through nearly 21 minutes of video. I really appreciate it. I do apologise, obviously, about having still got the aftermath of this flu and head cold. It is nasty. And I'll have some more content for you soon. Please like and subscribe, and obviously leave your comments in the comment section below. And I want to hear your feedback, and I'll have some more content for you very, very soon.